Hello, demons, fae, and those in between. This is Dizzy, and I will be sharing a fic from my hoard entitled A Thing with Wings by PaperPuffin. Here's the summary. Life is going well for Danny Fenton. He's a top engineer at Wayne Enterprises, has an apartment full of plants, and is resolutely ignoring his ghostly side. Or at least, he was, until a run-in with Poison Ivy's plants resulted in a night spent cuddling some bats as a giant otherworldly bird, or birdritch, if one would rather. Danny is more than a little embarrassed in the morning and more than a little confused when his life starts filling up with Waynes over the next few weeks. Why did Bruce Wayne have to be so charming, and why did his family have to feel like home? This fic is 28 chapters and was originally posted on Tumblr. There's a little under 60,000 words. Let's get started. Chapter 1. You're supposed to be at home. Danny blinked up from his work to find Lucius Fox standing in the doorway of his lab. The man had the sort of expression one wore around a child who had done something disappointing. Danny was used to the look, even if it had been a long time since he'd been a kid, or seen his parents for that matter. Okay, but, Danny started, we agreed that I could start at 10 and take my 8 hours plus 1 for lunch. A mandatory 1 hour for lunch away from your desk, Lucius interrupted. Yes, I've been doing that. I've been eating out on the rooftop garden or even leaving the building and eating out or taking lunch to the park. I've been behaving, Lucius, I promise. Lucius raised a judgmental eyebrow. It's after 8, Danny. What? No, I have an alarm on my phone and everything. Okay, well, that only works if my phone is charged. Danny jabbed uselessly at his phone screen. He followed the charger, which was plugged in all the way to the wall. He resisted the urge to let his head fall against the wall. I guess Lisa fried the outlet again or something. I'm sorry, Lucius. It's fine, Danny, Lucius said. But it is only because 1, I know you have been trying, and 2, I am going to buy you the most embarrassing alarm clock I can find and mount it to something in this lab. Now it is late. I am going home, and so are you, Mr. Fenton. Yes, sir, Mr. Fox, Danny said, and made an exaggerate show of packing up his backpack, dead phone, and all. Lucius gave a little snort at the antics and left with a get home safe, Danny. After his boss was gone, Danny took the time to make sure everything was in his bag and secure. He still didn't get why he couldn't just work late, but apparently WE had something of an insistence on work-life balance. According to Lucius, Danny crossed the line too often and was now being kept in line. Danny didn't think of mentioning that he didn't have much of a life, literally or otherwise, would help his case. Still, Danny had mused as he stepped inside the empty elevator. The rules did keep him from becoming his parents, and that was a very, very good thing. Being a mad scientist in Gotham usually ended up landing someone in Arkham. It was just that after the chaos Danny grew up with, going back to his empty apartment was depressing. It wasn't as if Danny never got out and did things, it's just that all those things were almost always on the weekend. Most days he just didn't have a reason to want to go back to his place. There was no getting out of it tonight. The great and powerful Fox had spoken, and Danny knew better than to try and sneak back up to his office. He lifted his hands over his head, stretching as the elevator descended the last few floors. Oh well, at least it had been before 10. He could still grab something on the way home and have a full, warm meal to take his pain meds on. By the pull along his left forearm, he would need them. Night, Bill, Danny said as he passed the security guard who was on the evening shift. He got another get home safe in response and gave a little wave in reply over his shoulder. Even after the few years in Gotham, it still amused Danny how much everyone wished everyone else some sort of safe travels here. As much as Gotham was a city of hardened realists, there was still so much hope about it. Hope people got home safely, and the bats would get where they need in time. That the city would rebuild again and again and again. The undercurrent of hope was so strong that Danny could practically feel it moving through the city like a river. It had been one of the reasons Danny had taken the job. He could use hope. He also had been very careful not to look too closely into it all. While Danny's early life may have been dominated by the occult, he tried to stay away from it these days outside of the necessary visits to the realms for his health. As much as the Far Frozen was full of ghost yetis, Frostbite was still a being of science, and visiting felt like a cold vacation to his weird relatives than anything else those days. Danny was actually worried that he was getting close to needing another visit. He shouldn't, not yet. He wasn't due back for another 3 months. But the thought of visiting Frostbite had been pulling at the back of Danny's mind, and the most annoying part of it all is that there wasn't any concrete reason that Danny felt he needed to go. Just a lot of little things. The ache was deeper in his bones. He'd been not noticing little things. His near constant vertigo was worse, and oddest of all, he had been feeling chilled. Maybe he should just take a long weekend and go for a quick visit. Lucius would undoubtedly approve of the break. Tomorrow. Danny would ask tomorrow, as long as he remembered. He'd finished all the fries before he even got home. He knew that, but that was future him's problem. Right then, being able to munch on the sweet, salty goodness as he took a shortcut through the park was just what he needed. There was something about Robinson Park that always settled him. It was probably because of the park's wild, otherworldly nature that came from Poison Ivy's control. It almost felt ghostly and how unreal it was. It was another thing Danny tried not to think too hard on and just enjoyed. It wasn't that Danny was ignoring the facts that he was half ghost, as he always tried to convince himself. He just wasn't dwelling on it anymore. Ghosts had consumed his life for so long, and he needed a break. Even before his accident, it was easier to call it an accident when people asked about his scars. His parents' obsession controlled their house, family, and lives. He got now that it wasn't normal to grow up not cooking because the food might eat you, or because your parents were too busy in the basement lab to remember. His time away from Amity Park and at college made Danny realize that Jazz's and his childhoods had been at best unsafe and at worst neglect. It had taken Danny a lot of therapy to be able to even think of those words. Being honest, Danny still needed a lot of therapy, but there was only so much progress he could make when he couldn't really explain that he was half dead and spent the end of his childhood fighting ghosts, the government, and his parents. He was half tempted to try and track down Harley Quinn to see if she was up to taking on a new patient. Danny was pretty sure she wouldn't rat him out to the authorities. A vine thrashed suddenly in front of Danny, hitting the sidewalk with an ironically meaty thump. Danny froze. Fuck. His phone was out of power. He couldn't check if something was going on in the park. While Poison Ivy was much more Pamela Isley than Rogue these days, as seen by the city just letting her have control of much of the park, she was still temperamental, and the right or wrong thing could set her and her plants off. Sometimes the plants went off on their own. Everyone knew not to be a sleazebag in Robinson Park. Slowly, Danny started to back up. Several more vines wrenched themselves from the ground around him. He could hear shouting somewhere off to his left. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see movement from the plants that direction. All right, not angry at him then. Danny crept forward slowly, keeping his emotions as calm as possible. Just because the plants weren't angry at him, it didn't mean that they weren't a threat to him. His best chance was to stay on the path and head in a direction away from the noise, and away from the oversized flowers. Well, fuckity fuck. Most things Poison Ivy could do weren't really a threat to Danny if he went ghost. He could phase away from vines, after all. But the flowers had pollen, and pollen was an unknown, one that Danny didn't want to be known. Sam was rather certain that the pollen could affect Danny in odd and unknown ways due to his half-ghost nature. He refused to let Sam actually experiment on him to figure it out. It was comparing her fever to his parents that helped shut the idea down for good. Danny didn't regret avoiding being a lab rat, even as he was staring down the ruby red flowers to his right. He still just had to keep his emotions as calm and small as possible. The flowers were only an issue if they let their pollen out. Danny started to move in as wide of an arc as he could around the flower. While they were closed up, he was safe. Danny's left hand spasmed. The paper bag of food crinkled. The flower petals unfurled. Fuck. Pamela, don't Pamela me during a fight. But that's the thing, Nightwing said, keeping his hands raised even as he motioned with them. This isn't a fight. I get you were upset. They tried to bury a body in my park, Pamela hissed, and we stopped them. You know, Red Hood stated, from where he was sitting atop the bound criminals, you could have just thought of it as free fertilizer. Nightwing gave up and buried his face in his gloved hands. Hood, you are not really helping. Of course I'm helping, Hood said as he inspected his fingered gloves. I'm keeping the baddies pinned. Red is the one who's not helping. I'm keeping a bird's eye view on things, Tim said into the comms, which really was a good thing considering, what? Speaking of birds, there's one the size of a large SUV headed this way, or at least it mostly looks like a bird. What do you mean it mostly looks like a bird? Nightwing asked. Fuck that, Hood cut in. What do you mean the size of an SUV? Pamela crossed her arms, hip jutted out defiantly. What? It wasn't me. I don't deal with animals. You know that. I mean, it's got 2 legs and a beak-ish thing. It looks like some sort of water bird, which I guess could explain it. We know Gotham Harbor has too many weird chemicals in it. Maybe someone emptied one too many things right on a totally normal bird and... Oh, it's glowing too. Well, great, Hood managed right before, with thundering steps, the bird thing broke through the vines. The tuft of green feathers on its chest seemed to almost glow from how bright the color was, but Tim hadn't been wrong. The bird thing really was glowing a pale cyan color that seemed to shift and ripple and pull away from the white crest and mostly black body of the bird. See, Tim said, motioning from his perch on the lamppost. An SUV-sized bird-like thing. The bird thing's head tilted, and Tim had the very sudden, very certain sense that all of the creature's focus was on him. Red, Hood rumbled as he slowly pulled out his gun. I think you better stop moving. You can't shoot it, Nightwing hissed. If it tries to eat Red, I sure as fuck am shooting it. Hood growled back. Or I could just entangle it with my vines, Pamela said. She crossed her arms when they all turned to look at her and examined her nails. What? I'm not going to just stand here and let a giant bird eat my favorite little birds. Aww, Nightwing cooed. You do care. Pamela rolled her eyes and flicked the hand she had been looking at. One of the massive vines broke free from the ground and whipped toward the bird thing at a speed that was almost hard to track. And stopped. Short. Held in the clawed grasp of the creature. The long neck reared back, and the bird thing opened its beak and squawked in offense. Guys? Tim said, his voice quiet now. Yeah, I'm seeing it too, Nightwing answered. Why the fuck does it have 3 legs? That was the end of chapter 1, and now on to chapter 2. Liminals. There were liminals close. Young ones. Liminal biddies. They were close. They were in danger. That flower was bad. Very bad. The flower had opened, spewing pollen, and Danny had crumbled. The scent of it was overwhelming and almost familiar. It had burned his lungs. His skin was on fire, cracking, burning, splitting. His core had shuddered and screamed. Danny lost himself. Danny lost everything. He didn't know. He wasn't there were liminals close. They were young and in danger. Danny had to protect them. He flew forward, tearing through the vines that tried to stop him with his too many arms. He snapped at the vines, stabbing and tearing them apart. There was no time to waste. He had to get to them. He had to keep them safe and close and maybe it would stop hurting. "En," Hood barked. "Look out behind you." Dick worked to twist just enough to keep the bird in sight, but still get a glance behind him, which, great. One of Pamela's flowers was trying to get handsy again. Whack! A taloned foot came down on top of the oversized flower. The plant shrunk back with a hiss, only to be met with a loud squawk in response. The bird stretched its long neck out above Nightwing to screech at the flower. "Nightwing!" Dick didn't even have time to react before he was being grasped around the waist and lifted, surprisingly gently, to be clutched against the plush neon green feathers. Bap, bap, bap. The bird continued to whack at the flower, squashing the magenta bud repeatedly until the flower retreated out of reach. "En?" Hood asked uncertainly as he edged in a circle around the bird. "I'm okay," Dick assured him quickly. "I think..." A sneeze interrupted him. "I think... God damn it. I think that the bird got doused with cuddle pollen. At least it sure smells like it." "Which means you're contaminated too," Red said. "Yup. So... Huh. So Jumbo Bird here just wants to cuddle?" Hood asked. Even through the mask's modulation, there was a smug note to his voice that Dick didn't trust. "I guess you finally met your cuddling match, Big Bird." Dick smiled charmingly and flicked Hood off. "Actually, these feathers are very soft." "Oh yeah, be smug now, because it looks like those feathers are practically absorbing you," Hood snarked back. "What? Oh, fuck, huh? He was deeper than before." "Nightwing?" Red asked, a nervous note to his voice. "Right, so who's going to dive in after me?" Dick asked right before the feathers surrounded him and his world went dark. "Nightwing!" Tim shouted and leaned forward on his perch. Nothing. Then, suddenly, a black and blue striped hand jutted out of the green feathers in a thumbs up. "I'm okay." "Jesus fucking Christ, Nightwing," Hood grumbled as he stalked forward. "Hey, Birdbrain, let go of my brother." "Aw, he called me brother," Nightwing cooed over the line. Maybe you can keep him after all," Hood said. He eyed the big bird back as it leaned down to peer at him. The green glint in the bird thing's eyes reflected off Hood's helmet. Then it blinked. Dozens of abstracted cyan eyes popped into existence around Hood. Hood reached out to poke at one with the muzzle of his gun. It went right through the eye. What the fuck? The bird thing trilled back at Hood. Tim tapped his comm to open the all channels line. So we have an eldritch bird creature that has been exposed to cuddle pollen. It's already cuddling Nightwing and... Yep, now it has Red Hood. "Don't shoot it, Hood, it's friendly." "It's a fucking menace." "A bird?" Robin's voice piped up. "Don't get too excited, baby bat. Eldritch bird is the size of an SUV and has way too many legs. And too many eyes. Sorta eyes? Yep, there goes Hood, absorbed by the fluff. Oh great, it's looking at me now." "Avoid the entity, Red Robin," Batman said across the comms, tone clipped and worried. "Sorta hard thing to do, Big B. It has a lot of legs right now and all eyes on me. There are so many eyes." "Avoid the entity," Batman barked again. Yeah, like that was going to go well. "Father, make this creature unhand me at once," Robin shouted. "Calm the fuck down. It's not hurting us," Red Hood grumbled. Not that it's letting us go. Actually, pretty comfortable in here, Red Robin said, in a voice tinged with the edges of sleep. Bruce couldn't even see a part of Red Robin in the mess of feathers. Bruce sighed and pinched his nose. Boys? Did you just boys us? Nightwing asked, though he sounded like he was enjoying the whole circumstance. Yes, Black Bat isn't involved in this at all, Bruce said. So, boys. Black Bat's soft laugh over the line was mostly drowned out by the warble that the bird entity made. Bruce absently started comparing the creature to the types of birds that roosted in Gotham as the surprisingly long neck unfolded and reached out towards him. He regarded the bird entity steadily. It warbled again, tilted its head, and then started preening the ears of the cowl. Bruce sighed heavily. Likes you. Cass's lyrical words came over the line. Bruce knew that tone. She was taking pictures for blackmail. And everyone said girls were easier. I really don't think it's going to let us go, B. It might not even be able to with the cuddle pollen, Nightwing said. Bruce could see the blue tips of Nightwing's boots now, but nothing else. Bruce hummed. Gotham doesn't have the facilities to humanely keep such a creature. Robin hit the ground in a crouch and started forward. Father. The bird entity reached out again for Robin with one of its too many limbs. Robin parried with his sheathed blade. The coo that the entity made in response was heart-wrenching, and Robin instantly deflated at the sound. He crossed his arms and looked away with a huff. Fine. With a much happier sound, Robin was grabbed carefully around the waist and placed on the bird entity's back, right behind its neck. Get off, Red Robin grumbled from wherever he was in the mass of plumage. Something shifting along the back feathers followed the sleepy words, then a yawn. The cave is the only choice. You can't be serious, Red Hood said. Bruce thought Red Hood might be clasped firmly under a wing to avoid further escapes. Red Robin yawned again. Large, secure, safe for us. Yeah, and how the fuck do we get this thing to the cave? Red Hood snapped back. After a considering silence, Black Bat piped up with the same mischievous lit. Idea. Almost there, Batman said to their comms. Kaz danced a little further from their new friend and closer to the Batmobile. This was a fun game to stay just out of reach of the long arms while still being enticing to the bird. It was like slow motion tag. She spun just to make her cape flare. I can't believe this is your plan, Pamela said as she watched. It will work. Remember to call the cops and not kill the criminals, Nightwing said cheerfully from inside of the plumage, only his legs visible before they too disappeared. Yes, Pamela said dismissively. I'm messaging Harley to ask you about it, so you better, Hood grumbled. He had tried to escape again just a moment ago. It had failed. Katz was fine with that. Her not biggest brother wasn't in the Batcave often enough. She missed him. Pamela huffed and crossed her arms. I'll call the cops, okay? And in return, you better actually show up for your therapy appointment Tuesday. Harley pouts when you don't. Fine, deal, whatever. Their bird friend warbled. Even it agrees, Red added with a wide yawn. You do not speak to birds, Red Robin, Robin said haughtily. Robin powers, Red replied. You must not have them yet. What? Oh, baby brat can't speak to birds yet? Hood asked. Weak. They'll come in eventually. Probably, Red said. Gotta give it time, Dick chirped. The bird squawked back happily, casted another spin to recapture their attention, and hopped up onto the roof of the Batmobile. Slowly she backed down the hood as the bird friend followed her. Once the bird was fully on the roof, Cass finally stopped and stood still. That long, feathered neck stretched out and the head pushed gently against Cass. She laughed and hugged the bird's neck back. Once she had been very gently lifted and set on the bird's back, she said, "Move slowly." Batman hummed back and started to drive. The bird gave a little squawk and flutter. Legs quickly emerged to grip the sides of the car. Batman slowly sped up until they were moving at a decent pace. The bird's feathers fluttered in the wind. "Agent A," Batman said into the comms, "we're going to need a nest." That was the end of chapter 2. Thank you very much for listening. I personally love this fic. I think it's so funny and really captures all the family feels that I love in fics. And the really cool thing is this was originally posted on Tumblr and I started following it there. And there's so much fan art for it. It's so cool. It's absolutely amazing. And share your thoughts on this golden piece. And don't forget to reach out to the original author. I have them linked in the description. And of course, thank you for listening to This Dragon's Hoard.